Hey, welcome into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely coming to you on a wet Monday afternoon, and we'll be here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports topics. And excited to kind of take your mind off the inclement weather here for a little bit. Wade, what's happening?
What's up, Mo? Good to be with you. Good to be with everybody. You're right. It got pretty gross in a hurry, and hopefully everybody's staying safe. There was a decent chance of some straight line damage, sounds like today. So everybody's staying safe and hunker down, and hopefully hunker with us for the next couple.
Hunkering with us would be a great idea, I think. Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. We've got in the next hour Ben McKee from Go Vols 24/7. Might not be as much fun as it could be because we'll be talking about Tennessee baseball. Things didn't go so well in Fayetteville. But, you know, when you're the 14 seed nationally, you're going to the 3 seed nationally, you're playing a best of 3 at their place. You know, this is a risk you run. So,
yeah, you put yourself in that spot.
Yeah, Tennessee coming up a little short. Obviously, expectations out the roof for this team coming off a 2024 national championship season. So, you know, it's tough to go back to back, and Tennessee kind of found that out. But we'll talk a little bit more about that with Ben in the 3 o'clock hour. In the next segment, we are going to chat with Tony SIRACUSA of The Last Word on Sports about the House settlement, which is kind of dominating NCAA athletics news right now. So he's got a pretty good story up on that website again, lastwordonsports.com. It's kind of comprehensive as to what a lot of this means and what's going to be next and that kind of thing. So really kind of looking forward to talking to Tony about that. And, you know, he really gets into the weeds on a lot of this stuff, but it's stuff that at some point is going to make sense and is going to be good to know. So stick around for Tony. That's going to be fun and enlightening, I think. We'll also be talking some Braves because we are contractually obligated to do so, but it's not a whole lot of fun right now. We'll talk some other Major League Baseball, some minor league baseball, a little spring football. And there was a lot that went on this weekend that wasn't necessarily the normal stuff for us, but we're going to get into that with some tennis and some horse racing and that kind of thing. Also get you up to date on the NBA finals and the Stanley Cup final as well. So again, a lot to get to here over the next couple of hours, and it's going to be fun doing so.
Yeah, jam-packed episode today. Looking forward to it. We got a good crew to join us and a great group of panel guests to kind of weave in and out of. I'm pretty pumped on this Monday.
Yeah, should be fun. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's dive into it head first with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the Rundown.
This is the Rundown.
It's rundown time, boys and girls, but on Mondays, our rundown is brought to you by Zion Christian Academy. Let's tell you a little bit more about ZCA, which offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831, and you can visit them online at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. Once again, that's Zion Christian Academy, where they are prepared for college, equipped for purpose.
Friday, Major League Baseball action. The Astros picked up a 4-2 victory at Cleveland. Not so much luck, or not such good luck, for the Atlanta Braves, who dropped a 10-inning decision out at San Francisco 5-4. Inclement weather, we were talking about a second ago, took care of the Sounds over at First Horizon Park on Friday night. Their game against Gwinnett was postponed. In WNBA action from Friday, the Connecticut Sun downed the Atlanta Dream 84-76, and the Los Angeles Sparks with a 93-79 win over Dallas.
Let's roll into Saturday. We go back to Major League Baseball. The Giants defeat the Braves 3-2 was your final on Saturday. The Astros go into extra innings, but do escape with a 5-3 victory versus the Guardians. The Sounds played not one, but two. and they took both as well, defeating Gwinnett 1-0 in your first game. That makeup game, game number 2, was a 4-0 victory. So nice back-to-back shutouts for the Sounds on Saturday. WNBA scores from Saturday. Golden State with a victory walloping my beloved Aces, 95-68. Speaking of walloping, without Caitlin Clark, the Fever show no mercy against the Sky, 79-52 at the United Center on Saturday. And in a marquee matchup, didn't live up quite to the billing because Seattle took care of business down the stretch, knocking off the Mercury 89-77. That was later in the evening, but if you go back to 8 a.m. on Saturday, Coco Gauff defeated Sabalenka in the French Open women's final, becoming the first American female to win the French Open in 10 years.
Oh, wow. Good for Coco. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. On Sunday, Major League Baseball action. The Guardians salvage one in that series against Houston, taking a 4-2 victory there. The Braves fall again by 1. 4-3 is the final out at San Francisco. In Sounds action, they closed out that series against Gwinnett with a 10-4 victory over the Stripers. WNBA action, Washington with a 104-67 win over Connecticut. Minnesota defeats Dallas 81-65. And in the men's singles finals of the French Open, it was Alcaraz with a 5-set victory over Center. Again, more on that later in the show.
That brings us into our schedule for today. It is brief, but stick around. We got some good stuff on tap. The Braves will be at the Brewers. That game gets underway at 6:40. You can see it on FanDuel Sports South. Just one WNBA contest on the docket tonight. Golden State will travel to Los Angeles, meeting the Sparks. California battle beginning at 9 p.m. And a Cats sighting on a Monday here. The Cats will be at Billings. That's Billings, Montana, and that's home of the Outlaws. Nashville will be on the road, taking on the Outlaws at 5 p.m. That brings us to the end of our schedule on this Monday. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our Monday Rundown.
By the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you our top story. And before we get to it, somebody screwed up, and that somebody was me. That Cats at Billings, that is a 7 o'clock start. Here in Nashville, it is 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And when you start converting, sometimes you screw up, and I did. Again, the Nashville Cats, the Billings Outlaws, that is a 7 o'clock kickoff here in Nashville, 6 o'clock in Billings, which is where the game will be played. Today's top story. There is an article on our website. I guess that's what, mainstreetmedia.com. You know, we've talked a lot on this show about Fisk University Gymnastics being the first historically Black college and university to sponsor a collegiate gymnastics program. And it was national news at the time that it took place, and they have made national news since behind Corinne Tarver, who at one time was AD over at Fisk, but shepherded that program into competition. 6-time national champion Morgan Price, one of the top women's gymnasts in the country. That program will be discontinued at the end of the 2026 spring season. And again, we've got an article up on the website at mainstreetmediatennessee.com. Blaine Keller writes that a quote from the university: "The decision came after a comprehensive view of the gymnastics program and its alignment with the HBCU Athletic Conference. While we are tremendously proud of the history our gymnastics team has made in just 3 years, we look forward to focusing on our conference-affiliated teams to strengthen our impact in the HBCU Athletic Conference," Fisk AD Valencia Jordan said. Man, that's tough to hear. Already, again, we talked earlier this year, Corinne Tarver left the program mid-season. Morgan Price probably the crown jewel of their women's gymnastics program, has transferred to Arkansas. So I don't know if they knew that this was coming or how exactly that came about, but two of the more two of the top names around the program have already left, and I would imagine other folks will be in the next few weeks, months as well. Price, originally from Lebanon, first HBCU gymnast to record a perfect score on the uneven bars earlier this year. Won 5 individual titles this spring at the Women's Collegiate Gymnastics National Invitation Championship. So, I mean, again, she's one of the best gymnasts in the country, regardless of where she was doing it. So, I don't know that I had heard anything about this coming or anything like that, but it has come, and next spring will be their last hurrah.
Yeah, tough news. And I guess the good news is there will be a season, or at least it's anticipated to be a season. Don't know till we get there, obviously. But yeah, sad news for all the promise and for things. Man, it felt like they had a lot of great mojo to get things started, kind of launching themselves and launching that program with a bang, with Tarver and Price, like you said, kind of spearheading that effort. And then poof, in the blink of an eye. And you remember a couple of months ago, we did mention when Tarver departed, an assistant who was the social media manager was kind of the interim coach, and it kind of just starts setting off a few little alarm bells with me. Nothing against social media managers, of course. Shout out to Katie Mosley, who joined us on Friday, but just seems like they were barely hanging on. And, in Blaine's article, it mentions donations were solicited through their website, which is not uncommon at small schools. Right. But the thing is, we're talking about a niche sport, a fringe sport by and large at a university that is an NAI institution, kind of living on the edges in terms of, budget and whatnot. So it kind of feels like to me that maybe, unfortunately, they got squeezed. I don't know, to your original point, if Coach and Price leaving dictated that, or if writing on the wall situation was there. But either way, ultimately just sad news for what was a really promising deal there going on.
Yeah, it's tough. And they had kind of, obviously led the way in terms of what they were doing for HBCUs. Talladega College had also instituted a women's gymnastics program. I think it has already gone by the boards as well, just in that shorter period of time. But to your point, Fisk promoted donations through its university website, with those funds set to support scholarships, training, travel assistant, and equipment upgrades. And like you said, a small college in any situation, they've only got a finite number of donors and funding and that kind of thing. And when it starts to get spread too thin, something breaks, I guess. And in this case, it was women's gymnastics, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and we're talking about a non-revenue generating sport. We're talking about an expensive sport, a lot of independent variables. Athlete XYZ might be able to go to this extra competition, and boom, out of nowhere, that's some extra expenses that maybe you didn't account for. Like I said, it's tough to really kind of wrap my brain around the budgeting that would have had to be done for this program, especially for a non-revenue generating sport, especially at a school without football. We saw coaching changes, men's basketball for sure this offseason at Fisk, and I want to say the women's program as well. So they're kind of in a state of flux yet again over there in Nashville, and it's really just unfortunate because, man, we weren't just talking about feel-good stories here. I mean, this was nationwide prominence. Right. And it felt like they were on the cusp of really breaking onto something special, but it doesn't seem like that.
I mean, they were on, Good Morning America, on CBS This Morning, different things like that. I mean, national spotlight was where they were. And, it was Fisk University Gymnastics that was being talked about, but it was Fisk University that was being talked about. And, that kind of exposure, you can't necessarily put a price tag on. So, it's just a unfortunate turn of events across the board. You hate to see it, but Fisk University gymnastics will go away at the end of the 2026 spring season, if not before, because, here over the summer, you've got X number of gymnasts. They know that they're going to be out of work, so to speak, at the end of next year.
Mm-hmm.
They might be trying to get somewhere right now. And if all of a sudden out of, 15 gymnasts, suddenly 12 decide to go elsewhere, you're not going to run this thing for 3 kids.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to poo-poo on any parades here, but it does feel, I will be shocked if we do maybe finish. And, hopefully they do come back and hopefully they have a measure of success. That would really be kind of a cool story like we saw with, was it Birmingham Southern baseball last year? Kind of really, really neat. The other cool part of this, at least, now a lot of folks know who Morgan Price is. I don't think a lot of the general public, I certainly didn't know. But kind of a wild story, right? She changed her commitment shockingly from Arkansas to Fisk years ago. And now she's back at Arkansas and her sister's on the team. So I think they will inherit some kind of natural buy-in there. I certainly will, at least keep loose tabs. But I hope everybody else that remains on that program at Fisk, they end up where they kind of want to.
Yeah. And I think that's the best thing that you can hope for under the circumstances, that they are able to get somewhere and continue to pursue gymnastics at the collegiate level, if that's what they want to do. So, best of wishes to everybody involved with this situation. It's just an unfortunate turn of events for the program and for the people involved with it. So let's take a break here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be visiting with Tony SIRACUSA of The Last Word on Sports. Stick around.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Opening June 20th.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
333.
Oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. And joining us now from The Last Word on Sports is Tony SIRACUSA. Tony.
Hey guys, how you
doing?
Hey.
Good, thanks. Eventful weekend, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it was. It turned into a late Friday night, very early Saturday morning for those of us on the East Coast, with this House versus NCAA settlement being all wrapped up because the case was heard in a courtroom in Oakland, California. And so the judge, Claudia Wilkin, of course, was doing things on West Coast time. And just the funny anecdote, or maybe funny anecdote about it, was I had just gotten home not too much before that from seeing the Savannah Bananas at B of A Stadium in Charlotte, and was like, well, nothing from Judge Wilkin tonight. It's already 7:30 on the West Coast. Looks like we're done. I can safely just cash it in for the night. As I was getting ready to go to bed, I got the news alerts that she had made her ruling and all of the files were going to be uploaded within an hour. So I quickly got out of bed, settled into the office, actually at about read the entire 76-page brief. And it turns out fell asleep in the family room with my laptop and my notepad in my lap, making notes for the article that we would publish a couple hours later in the morning.
Man, yeah, I can see where 76 pages that time of night might put you to sleep, but it's pretty, it's interesting, it's exciting stuff, but I mean, late Friday night, it doesn't really matter as far as sleep goes, but
that's right.
What, it's kind of stupid of me to ask, but what jumps out at you about this? Because
I think a couple of things. Well, I think a couple of things. I mean, we all know the basics at this point, right? The schools are going to be allowed to basically pay their athletes directly. There's going to be revenue sharing. There is an agreed upon cap of $20.3 million per school, and they're free to spend it however they want. You can spend, if you're the University of Tennessee and you want to put it all on your football program, you can. I don't think Tony Vitello would be too happy with those kinds of numbers, but nonetheless, they can work that out however they want. Most schools that I have talked to are looking at it like this. If the football program brings in 70% of the athletic department's revenue, they're going to get 70% of this $20.3 million budget. Mm-hmm. How the coach spends it is up to him. If he wants, how much he needs to keep players, get other players out of the portal, whatever the case may be. Basketball will get some. In some schools, women's basketball will get some. But I think a couple of things that we're going to need to get used to is this new college sports commission. We're all gonna need to hone in and learn about that. The NCAA has no purview over this at all, period. They were, of course, defendants in the lawsuit because they had been acting in violation of the Sherman antitrust laws for about the last 50 years. But they are not part of managing this. We're going to have a new college sports commission. And Friday night, shortly after the legal proceedings were done, the sports commission announced that they have named Brian Seeley as the new CEO. Seeley had been, up until Friday night, the executive vice president of Major League Baseball in charge of legal operations. So he will be the one overseeing the procedures of all of this, making sure schools are following the rules, that the athletes are following the rules. They are going to be the ones in charge of managing this part of college sports. The NCAA will still manage March Madness and other postseason events, the College Baseball World Series, what have you. They will still manage eligibility of athletes. They'll still do the TV contracts, things like that. But they will not be a part of this. I think that that's pretty significant.
Tony, as you kind of wade through this and kind of obviously there's a lot to dive into, what you just kind of said, my brain immediately was thinking, is this a situation where some schools, at the, I guess, mid-major, smaller schools, if they were so inclined. I mean, it's their money to just spend as however they want. And so if they just suddenly want to become a quote unquote football school, they can spend money or die trying to do so. Is that kind of how I'm understanding this?
Yeah, they absolutely can. It is 100% at the school's discretion. If Bowling Green wants to put all of this money on football, they can. Now, bear in mind, this is not a perfect settlement. It's not a perfect decision. It's far from it. But if it weren't for this, and Judge Claudia Wilkin, and just 10 quick seconds on Claudia Wilkin, she was also the presiding judge in O'Bannon versus NCAA and Alston versus NCAA. So she's got her credentials when it comes to knowing the process. She made it clear that this was the deadline. If we don't have this settlement, there are no other choices. We're going to trial. That trial would have taken a couple of years. The NCAA would have lost because they were guilty of antitrust violations. And the weight of the system, I truly believe the weight of how we were now, which was completely unregulated, collectives doing whatever they wanted, it would have just crushed college sports under its own weight. So while this is far from perfect, and while there will be further lawsuits down the road, it at least gets us some semblance of structure back into college sports. But you're absolutely right. Schools can do this however they want. On the other hand, take a school like Gonzaga, which doesn't have a football program, but also probably doesn't have the $20 million to spend, because a lot of this money, whether it's SEC schools or ACC schools even, this is their revenue from their conference contracts. It's their TV revenue. It's to some degree their postseason revenue. Gonzaga doesn't have a conference contract. They're not getting conference revenue to any significant amount. They may only have $10 million to spend. That's up to them. They obviously will spend a lot on basketball, and what they do with the rest of it is up to them. So some of the mid-majors, some of the smaller schools aren't really happy with this, because they're like, we're not living high on the hog. Like, we
don't have the money to spend.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But on the other hand, it is what it is. Again, this helped put some guardrails in for the future of college athletics. Part of what it does is it minimizes the role of the collectives. Because NIL can now be done by the school. It can be managed by the school, which wasn't legal before. It is now. Plus, you have the revenue sharing. The Judge Wilkin even pointed out that these, third parties, as she called them, like the collectives, really don't have much of a role in this anymore. There are some collectives who have said that they will sue over this. And she pointed out already, there is nothing in current litigation, current precedent, anything that has been adjudicated that says collectives have a right to exist in college athletics. So they really have no standing in any of this. A lot of school administrators that I've talked to throughout the East Coast and the Southeast, what they're going to do is take the collectives out of the role of football. The coaches didn't like it anyway because they felt obligated to these boosters. They're going to use them as fundraisers for the smaller sports that otherwise aren't going to see much money from the revenue sharing. Instead of getting us $30 million for football, we need you to get us $10 million for baseball, softball, gymnastics, track and field.
But that's not where they want to be.
It's not where the boosters want to be. Absolutely not. Is there a way around it for the boosters? Because I see where you're going, Coach. And is there a way around it? And the answer is yes. The boosters will wind up donating to the companies that do the NIL deals with the players. The boosters will wind up donating to the local car dealership that then strikes a deal with the quarterback for an NIL deal, because that is now legally supposed to be a direct relationship from, with deliverables from the quarterback. He goes and does autograph signings or does in the commercials, and he gets money and maybe a car. You're going to see some of the boosters donate to those businesses now in order to ramp up the amount of the NIL that gets paid.
And the smaller sports will still kind of be out in the cold.
They will. They still will get very little. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Tony SIRACUSA of Last Word on Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Tony, as you said, we're not done here. There will be more lawsuits. And when someone brings a Title IX lawsuit over this, will they sue the NCAA? Will they sue the individual school? Will they sue the College Sports Commission? Will they sue any and all of the above? How does that work? Because again, it's coming.
Yeah, it will be all of the above. You've got to throw the pasta against the wall to see if it's cooked. And so you're going to, some of them will be removed by the judge as defendants based on standing. But it's interesting because we've all known that there's been Title IX issues with this decision. And Judge Wilkin actually addressed that in her ruling Friday night when she said, I don't dispute that there might be Title IX issues, but there are not right now. In other words, I'm not going to include in my ruling something that is speculative down the road. There are no Title IX violations right now. When there are, then someone can bring a suit. So I started thinking, okay, let's move to the fall. Let's see, you got women's soccer and women's volleyball or fall sports. They end in December. So by somewhere in January or February, when you have a female athlete who didn't get what they deemed to be a equitable amount of money, then by spring, you'll see the lawsuit. It'll take 2, 3, 4 years. People forget this suit, House versus NCAA, which was filed by an Arizona State swimmer, was filed in 2020. This has taken 5 years to get to this point. And Judge Wilkin wrote, we're not going to alter a settlement based on something that might happen down the road. We're going to do it based on the facts in front of us. And she said, and we have to remember, Title IX does not mean you get equal results. It means you get equal opportunity. That's what Title IX is. Are you getting the same opportunity to get paid, to make money, to do the things that are part of this agreement? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that, but that's what the issue will be.
Tony, I'm also curious. We just talked to, the last couple of weeks about the reformation of the college football playoff. Was this in the back of the minds of administrators and execs? And if so, kind of how does this play out? I guess the real question is, does this help or hurt parity in college football? Because it feels like we're trending until this lawsuit toward the big dogs just ruling the roost. Do we get back to a little somewhat more even playing field?
I'll do a little play on words. It can be parity, parody. I don't know if it's the other kind of parity with equality.
You don't know which one I meant necessarily.
That's right. That's exactly right. Look, it's in the back of the minds of the commissioners and the school presidents. Yes, this was playing a part of it. A lot of schools were actually starting to front load some of their payments to players before this takes effect July 1st. And it's July 1st because across the country, that's officially the start of the new academic year for schools. They don't have to start paying them on July 1st. But there are a lot of elements that are being put into the contracts with players that are being done very quietly, but with these things in mind. For instance, I know of schools, it is up to the schools how they pay the players. In other words, you don't have to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. It doesn't even have to be every month. It can be every quarter. It can be every other month. It's whatever the schools and those athletes agree to. I know of several schools who are not going to make a payment to their football players in December. They're going to hold it until January, and there is a stipulation in the contract that if we go to a bowl game, you cannot opt out if you want your January payment. So there's a lot of finagling with the details of this. In terms of the playoffs, yes, I think it does matter whether we go to the 5+11 or the 4-4, 2-2, whatever the numbers are on that, because you see some of the smaller schools who can spend money or will spend more money thinking that they have a legitimate shot at being a playoff team, and they want their say in it.
Tony, I'm also curious, amidst all this, it seems like the NCAA, whatever teeth they still have left in Charlie Baker, they're still fighting against that, nasty word, employees.
Yeah.
And to me, when I think about this, I'm thinking, okay, you could go the collective bargaining route, but until you can kind of get that designation, you kind of are on uneven ground there, so to speak. So I'm curious, when are we going to get this final ruling that, everybody knows that these are employees at this point?
They are, but I could go on a half hour about the employee status, and I know we don't have that kind of time. It would be, yes, you would have to have collective bargaining. We wrote in our column on Saturday morning, you can't have collective bargaining right now. Right. Who's going to do the collective bargaining? You have 300,000 D1 college athletes. Approximately 125 of them claim to be represented by some sort of labor conglomerate. You're not going to collectively bargain with 125 people to represent 300,000. There's also no one on the other side of the table who has the authority to strike a deal on behalf of all of college athletics. So there is no collective bargaining. Can it happen? Sure. Will it happen? Years and years down the road. It took the NFL Players Association 6 years to put itself together as a union. And that was for a few thousand players. This is much larger. The employee status, I will say this without getting too granular. There are currently 7 states that outlaw collective bargaining for state employees. So you're going to have a problem if you want to collectively bargain and be a state of employee. And let me tell you, one of them is the state of Texas, where football is king. So there are a lot of it's good in theory. And I hear a lot of people talking about, yes, we must get to this in theory. That's fine. But you got to have the logistics. And we are nowhere near those logistics yet.
Tony, if you could inject the top 10 or 20 athletics directors in the country with truth serum, how many of them would tell you, and we should have dealt with this on our own when we had the opportunity to do so, like at any point over the previous 20 years?
If you give them the truth serum, 20 out of 20 will say it, because they should have. And look, it was up to the NCAA to do this, but who is the NCAA? It's the conglomeration of all the schools, the athletic directors, the school presidents, and chancellors. They could have pushed Tom Emmerich on this. They could have pushed all of the last 3 or 4 presidents of the NCAA on this. But it was hubris. The NCAA never thought that they would lose the O'Bannon case. And then from that came the collectives, and then they lost the Alston case. It was complete hubris to think that they could continue to act the way they were. Now, an interesting sidebar to that question, the term of this agreement is 10 years. This agreement expires in 10 years. It can be renewed. It can go forward again, but there's a purpose to the 10 years, the United States Congress. And I know that for years we've been hearing, oh, Congress doesn't want a piece of this. Congress doesn't want a piece of that. Yeah, they do. I'm going to tell you they do. We have talked to senior staffers with senators and congressmen. What is likely to happen is for them to try to push through a bipartisan bill over the next 10 years. Their goal is really about 5 years that would nationalize a system. The question is who would run that system, because it's not going to be Congress, but they would formulate the system. One of the potential ways of doing that is giving very limited, very restricted antitrust protections, immunity to either the College Sports Commission and or the NCAA, so that they could enforce rules, so that they could go on with making new guardrails and not have the threat of constant lawsuits. Because the NCAA gets sued. They want to change 3 days in the transfer portal, and it's in federal court the next day. The College Sports Commission is not in danger of being sued over enforcement of the rules right now because it is written into this agreement from Judge Wilkin.
So Congress wants to get involved in it.
They do to some degree.
Do the schools want Congress to get involved in this?
No. They really
So
don't.
again, wouldn't it behoove them then to be proactive one time and handle this situation on their own?
It would, but I think all you have to do is go back to the question you guys had about the college football playoffs. You've got the Power 4 conferences, which I think we can be grown up and admit is really the Power 2 conferences. And they're acting in what is in their best interest. And you have the ACC and the Big 12 trying to fight for whatever their best interest. And you don't have any entities looking after the sport as a whole, college football at least, or really any of the college sports. We're all still waiting for someone to act in the best interest of the bigger picture. And look, we all know what's going to happen when it gets to the House or to the Senate. I'm not picking on anybody politically. This is not a political conversation at all, but talking about the people who've been involved so far, Senator Marsha Blackburn is going to do what is in the best interest of the University of Tennessee and Vanderbilt and even Middle Tennessee State and the schools in her state. And Cory Booker is going to try and throw a lifeline to Rutgers or Seton Hall. And Ted Cruz is going to, defend Texas Tech. And you know what I'm saying? They're all still going to have their own interest of what they deem to be their constituents. So it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take years to do it. But now you have years to try to get it done.
Real quick, Tony, does while you kind of mentioned playoffs again, does this help, hurt, or we don't know yet the argument, hey, in about 5 or 6 years, we get like a super league. Does this help those schools maybe branch out, say, you know what? All right, forget the SEC, forget the Big Ten. We're just the best. Make whatever name you want. We're the top 30 schools and kind of create that. Is that a way to wield any sort of collective power?
I think it is. And I think part of that, one of those steps is a merging of the ACC and the Big 12 for negotiating power, not for necessarily playing each other. You'll have a few crossover games, but for a combined effort at the negotiating table sooner or later. And I know we've talked about this before. To me, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, these conferences are going to be so big that you're going to wind up with 2 or 3 super conferences. And you know what's going to happen then? They're going to have to go back to divisional play, that they'll break up the conferences into the regions in which they should have stayed. Stanford and Cal will get to play West Coast games again.
Yeah, there'll be ACC schools just in the coastal or the West Coast division, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the big, UCLA and Washington and Oregon, USC will get to play West Coast games again, even as part of the Big Ten. Just as you said, they'll call it the Western Division or whatever they want. Because
as long as I don't call it leaders and legends again, we've gone down. We've gone down that road.
That was one of the worst. But
yeah, we've gone down that road.
But once you get to 20, 22, 23 schools in a conference, you can't just have the top 2 play for the conference championship.
Tony SIRACUSA of Last Word on Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today. You can find him on Twitter or on X at Tony Bruin. Tony, we appreciate your insight, man, and helping us get through this. And I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you again here over the coming weeks as more bubbles up around the House settlement, because it will. So
no problem. Always glad to spend the time with you guys. Be well.
Thank you, Tony.
Let's take a break here as we continue on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, let's talk a little pro baseball. Stay tuned.
If you want the latest in weather conditions, be sure to tune in to our Busy Bee Plumbing weather report each weekday on Mornings on Main Street. Brought to you, of course, by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. We will keep you updated on the latest conditions outside, like severe weather, heat, snow, rain, and even hail.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Ninth, 1996. Despite allowing a 2-run ninth inning home run, John Smoltz improved to 12-1 on the season as the Atlanta Braves won 8-3 at Colorado. Smoltz struck out 10 over 8 1/3 innings before Mark Wohlers picked up the final 2 outs. Smoltz also doubled one of the Braves' 6 extra base hits in the victory. Eric Young Sr. went 3 for 4 for the Rockies, while Walt Weiss was held hitless in 3 at-bats. That was this day in Braves history. That's former Atlanta Braves first base coach Eric Young Sr. and current Atlanta Braves bench coach Walt Weiss. So that's why we threw that in. We're also throwing this in because we're trying to put off talking about the 2025 Atlanta Braves as long as possible, but it's inevitable. With their sweep at San Francisco this weekend, we referenced it to some degree in the rundown. Lost 5-4 and 10 on Friday, lost 3-2 on Saturday, and 4-3 yesterday. The Atlanta Braves have now lost their last 7 games. Those last their last 5 losses have each been by a run. They lost to Boston on Sunday, June 1st. They were off that Monday. That's when Matt Tuiasosopo got reassigned from third base coach to minor league infield instructor, was replaced by Freddie Gonzalez. They then lost on Tuesday to Arizona 8-3. And then the run of 1-run losses began on Wednesday. So again, 7 straight losses for Atlanta. Don't know that things are going to get any better in Milwaukee tonight at 27-37. The Braves go to the Brewers, who are 35-31. Chris Sale gets the start in the 6-10 matchup. Sale 3-4 with a 2.93 earned run average. Aaron Savali 1-1 with a 5.19 gets the ball for the Brewers. And talking over the weekend with some folks, it's inevitable. Somebody's getting fired, traded, or both in Atlanta, and Chris Sale might be their most tradable piece. I mean, when you've got a guy who's pitching as well as he is for a team that's as bad as this one is, what's the point of having him?
Yeah, you can fetch, like I said, as we get closer to the deadline, we find out who the buyers and sellers are. And if you are a buyer, that would be, that turns a good team into a great team. That turns a team that's right on the cusp of playoffs into, we can make a real run at this thing. He would be, in my mind at least, I don't know any of the other contract situations on the team, but it feels like the most tradable asset just from a talent standpoint and a form standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, he feels like the guy who would have the biggest impact on a good team because he's not.
I think so. I mean, he kind of. Yeah, I mean, whether it's Randy Johnson or Roger Clemens, I mean, he kind of fits that mold of, hey, this is a superstar that's on the block that could swing your season if you really want to make a run at it. So that part speaks to me. And, man, you mentioned the firing. I asked Donnell last week, and he kind of downplayed it a little bit, but I was like, if you have these high expectations and you are where you are now, just a few games ahead of the Marlins in that division, somebody's got to go, and they're kind of tiptoeing around it a little bit. It seems like with some of those
they really are.
You mentioned. Yeah, just do what needs to be done. He said on the show last week, give him to the end of the season. I really don't know at this point. I mean, what else are you going to learn, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever you're going to know about this team. And here's the thing. It feels like a bunch of players are underachieving on this team, and sometimes you just need a fire to be lit, and he might just be collateral damage. I don't know, but I mean, doing anything other than firing Brian Snitker at this point, I feel like it's just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. And this, again, they've lost 7 straight. They're 10 games under 500. To put that in perspective, they started the season 0-7. They're worse now than they were at the start of the season, as bad as they were then. So, I don't know. It feels something's got to happen. I don't think you can just stay status quo with this team at this point. Something's got to happen. You just got Acuna back. You just got Strider back, but he's been awful. I mean, he lost again yesterday, and not necessarily through any fault of his own. And again, it was 4-3, but he's 0-5. So you get your 2 best players back, and you promptly fall 10 games under 500. It's not good. And to your point, when you are battling the Marlins to stay out of the division cellar, that's not where you want to be. When you're chasing the Washington Nationals, that's not where you want to be. And if you are a Braves personnel member, if you are a Braves fan or anything in between, that's not where you expect to be. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they've got some decisions to make. And now the real question will be, how soon do they start making those decisions, right? I mean, if, you tally up, you don't envision, dropping 6 or 7 more in a row and, pushing this thing to double digits. But, how many will it take, or how far will we have to go before some kind of move? There will be some sort of move, whether that's a player getting moved, whether that's a manager getting moved, whether that's a front office person stepping aside. It feels inevitable because even though the Mets and Phillies are in that division, expectations were pretty sky high for this team.
Yeah, the expectations were to compete with both of those teams, and that ain't the case. Again, Houston dropping a 4-2 decision at Cleveland yesterday to close out that series, but a good series for Houston, picking up 2 of 3 on the road against a really good team in the AL Central. So again, Houston wins 4-2 on Friday, 5-3 on Saturday. And you said one of those was in extras, Wade, Saturday night?
Yeah, Saturday afternoon. Ended up kind of watching the extra innings portion of it. And, man, Houston, they didn't really win it. Cleveland just didn't want it bad enough. They had their chances. They had a chance for 2 batters to knock one out and maybe win the game in the 10th inning there. But, yeah, 2 out of 3 versus, the Guardians. Talk about a little bit of an underachieving team, but they're not chopped liver by any means. They're right there in the middle of the pack in the AL. So Houston can't afford. They're not in a position to turn down or look their nose down on any wins at this point. So good little series for them.
Absolutely. And they are off today before the White Sox come into town tomorrow. That's the 22-44 White Sox. So a chance to kind of keep the momentum going there for Houston here over the next few days. Paul Skeens didn't get the win, but the Pirates did yesterday as they completed a sweep of visiting Philadelphia. McCutcheon gets the game-winning single in a 2-1 victory. And again, Skeens, no decision, but struck out 7, gave up 2 hits and an unearned run in 7 2/3 before yielding to the Pittsburgh bullpen. Braxton Ashcraft got the last 4 outs of the game, picked up his first victory, but something old, something new. Andrew McCutcheon and Paul Skeens, and the Pirates continuing to show a little bit of a sign of life under Don Kelly up there since that managerial change.
Yeah, I mentioned that, or I was meant to bring that up a moment ago. We saw the Rockies with a little jolt. We saw the Pirates with a little jolt. To your point, wonder if that potentially would at least, like, you're not really out anything if that does be the case. But yeah, man, and Skeens, it's tough, right? Because he's pitching at a high level, and they're in a weird spot because you already know how good this guy is. It's not as if we're, okay, let's just pitch him and, let's just see. And, if you take some no decisions or you take a loss here and there, oh, well, at least he's developing. I mean, this dude is locked, loaded, and ready to shine for Team USA next year. That's how good we're talking this guy is. And they're not getting it done. That's like the only redeeming factor this team has other than the nostalgia of McCutcheon, as you mentioned. They're bad. And they were predicted to be feisty, at least, if nothing else, in that Central.
Skeens is 4-6 on the year with an earned run average of 1.88. That's brutal. Meanwhile, Philadelphia has lost their last 5 and 9 of their last 10. So it's almost like, does anybody want to win the NL East? The Mets haven't necessarily been great themselves. So I don't know. Maybe if Atlanta would do something, they could get themselves back into this thing. I don't know. They're 14 back of New York right now. They are 9.5 back of Philadelphia. It takes some heavy lifting, and it's tough to really envision it from where they are at this point. But stranger things have happened. This is a team that didn't hit 500 until August back in 2021 when they won the World Series. So now this ain't that team, but the numbers are the numbers. So we'll see. The Dodgers placed yet another starting pitcher on the injured list. Tony Gonsolin went on the list over the weekend with some elbow issues. The Dodgers have placed 8 starting pitchers on the injured list this season. That's the 39-27 Dodgers, which is the third best record in the National League. They lead the NL West, and they've had 8 starters go on the IL.
Been rough for them. And, we talked about Ohtani. I mean, you're almost at the point, hey, we need you to pitch. It was a little bit more of a dog and pony show or a circus act because of the riches they had on their rotation coming into the season. But now, you maybe need this guy. On the other hand, it almost does, the Padres and Giants just refuse to go away, so it's not completely foregone. But it does feel like LA, which has not officially clinched a playoff berth by any means, but you will take the results of the regular season, whatever they may be, if it meant getting everybody back and healthy going into the playoffs. I don't know if that's necessarily their strategy, but they're having to get creative with these. Man, they are racking up the knocks in that rotation for sure.
Big time. And over the weekend, we were lucky that Ryan Weathers didn't go back on the IL. During warm-ups for his matchup, was it Saturday against Tampa Bay? It wasn't yesterday, I don't think. It was Saturday. He's thrown his last warm-up pitch. They're getting ready to throw it down to second base and start the bottom of the first at Tampa Bay. And, well, here's what happened.
Just got hit in the head by a baseball. Nick Fortes just hit Ryan Weathers in the head on his throw down to second.
He turns around right off the top of the head. Woo,
wow. Well, and you feel bad for Nick Fortes because he must be feeling awful. What on earth?
You feel bad for Nick Fortes.
Weathers is telling the training staff that I'm okay, but they continue to insist that he keeps on throwing pitches.
Wasn't who I was thinking of at first.
That's not who I was thinking I would feel bad for in that situation necessarily. I mean, I know that he didn't mean to do it, but yeah, that's not who I was thinking I would feel bad for. Weather survived, and it might have something to do with that mane, man. Have you seen a better flow recently than what Ryan is rocking?
He looks pretty good, but yeah, it was that was a wild situation Saturday, and I was watching the game, and in the bottom of the first, and I kept wondering why they kept showing, top of the first, I kept wondering why they were just really focusing on the pitcher, almost not even the batter as much. I was like, what's up with Weathers? And then finally I see the clip, and I was like, holy cow. Had a wager on no run scored in the first inning. Props to Weathers for getting me out of that and saving face. But I did have a few strikeout plays on Weathers, and it was not a good outing. Probably one that had something. I mean, that can't have, even if he was 100%, that just throws you off your rhythm, I would imagine, if nothing else. But there ain't no way he was 100% going out there like that. It was a rough outing.
No, he got through the first inning on 8 pitches, but he wound up throwing 57 over 3. Did not factor into the decision as the Marlins won 11-10. The Marlins won 11-10 in 10. But he said after the game, he felt like he was kind of going on adrenaline early on, and then I just felt very disconnected out there with all the adrenaline left me. It's kind of like that episode of SpongeBob where everything's on fire inside his brain. I just felt like I was in pure chaos after that happened. So it was just kind of the right time to come out of the game there. Again, went 3 innings, gave up 4 runs, 3 earned, but seemed to be generally okay, I guess.
Seemed to be okay. I mean, if you're from Loretto, you're pretty hard-headed, as they like to say. So he stuck it out. He's a gamer. And hopefully, I would imagine he's going to go right back into the rotation on his usual rest and whatnot. But maybe give him an extra day just to get a little ice pack on that, because that could not have felt good.
You keep a cool head. Absolutely. Again, Sounds took 5 of 6 from Gwinnett over this past week, closing it out with a 10-4 victory yesterday. They are off today before opening a 6-game series in Norfolk. That's going to do it for hour number 1 here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back for hour 2. We'll get into the grab bag. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
It's hour number 2 of the weekend the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And I knew I was going to screw that up. I just didn't know when. So it was the top of the second hour here as we head into the grab bag. For people that pay attention, I don't think that the UFL championship game matchup is what would have been expected. Birmingham was playing for its 4th consecutive spring football championship, having won 2 in the USFL in 2022 and 23, and last year's UFL championship. The Michigan Panthers said, hold up, wait a minute, and slapped a 44-29 semifinal loss on the Stallions to end their season. The Panthers led this thing from the get-go. They were up 2 touchdowns from the start and never trailed. So again, Birmingham's spring football dynasty comes to an end with that loss in the USFL division title game. So it'll be the Panthers moving on. They will face in St. Louis the DC Defenders, who defeated the St. Louis Battlehawks in St. Louis 36-18 yesterday. And again, DC led that thing from the start. They were up 14-0, 20-6, and held on late to win that one. So you've got Michigan and DC playing in the UFL championship game next weekend. And if the Defenders pull it off, then former Tennessee State quarterback Shannon Harris will become the first HBCU graduate to win a professional football championship as a coach, which sounds pretty wild to say, but I mean, when you think about it, I'm not sure how many guys have had the opportunity. The only one I'm aware of is the current TSU coach, Reggie Barlow, who had the Defenders in the 2023, I guess it's the XFL that they were in, had them in that championship game, came up short. But so Shannon gets his opportunity because Barlow steps down as coach of the Defenders to take over the program at Tennessee State. And Shannon had been offensive coordinator for the Defenders. He gets moved into the head coaching role on an interim basis. And as far as I know, he's still interim. I don't know that title has changed at any point, but that's where we're at. Shannon with a shot at history.
Be cool. And like you said, 2 kind of surprising results. Didn't watch any of these games, but I was kind of a little shocked. And man, talked about it a little bit Friday. Props to DC for battling back. They had defeated St. Louis earlier in the season, but then kind of had 2 yucky games, including a loss to the Battlehawks right at the end of the regular season, but not to be denied. Should be a fun matchup. They go against Michigan, coached by Mike Nolan. No word yet on if he will try and wear a suit in the championship game on the sidelines.
That's a good one. You know, you are showing some experience behind your years there with that one, Mr. Neely.
I didn't know this, by the way, too, but per Wikipedia, which means it's got to be true, they didn't announce that this game was getting played. It's played at a neutral site, and they don't announce it, a year in advance or 2 years in advance like the NFL. They didn't announce this game was going to be in St. Louis, though, till April 13th. So like 6 weeks ago was when they announced that. So props to everybody behind the scenes trying to reel this thing together. Don't know what sort of halftime entertainment to expect, but give me DC in this game. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
It should be fun. Now they will be kind of fighting uphill because in early May they lost at Michigan 38-14. But former Ravenwood standout, former TSU standout Chris Rowland had a big game, 144 receiving yards in that one. So if the Panthers let him get loose again, it could be a problem. Yeah. Saturday, 7 o'clock. Should be a fun one. I guess it's on Fox. I would assume it's on Fox. We'll let you know where you can see it when the time comes. But I'm just kind of intrigued by all the TSU intertwining with the defenders. Their offensive coordinator now is Fred Keiss, who was an offensive line coach at TSU a while back. And also ex-TSU athletics director Teresa Phillips' son Kyle, who played his ball at Tennessee, is on this roster as well. So a lot of local ties with the defenders. Go get you some gear.
And obviously, you know, who knows where those guys end up after this season. Maybe back in Nashville on Barlow's staff, or maybe somewhere else. You shine up a ring in the UFL, and who knows where that can take you.
That looks good on a resume for sure. So stay tuned. Again, we mentioned in the rundown the 5-3 Nashville Cats play at Billings tonight. That will be a 7 o'clock Nashville time kickoff. They are in the playoff mix, and they are in the mix to get a game at home for the playoffs. Again, they play tonight, and then they close out the regular season Saturday at Corpus Christi. If they pick up a couple of victories, that gets them to 7-3. And again, that will have them within reach of potentially hosting a semifinal when the playoffs start on June 20th in the Arena Football 1 League. So keep an eye on that, and we'll try to keep you up to date as best we can. NFL news: Nick Chubb and the Houston Texans are expected to come to an agreement, which would kind of boost the Texans' run game, I would think. With he and Joe Mixon in the same backfield, that's a little fire and ice, little thunder and lightning kind of thing there, I guess.
Yeah, extra weapon for C.J. Stroud, and Mixon had a solid season last year. If you can keep him healthy, if you can keep him kind of involved in the game plan, you can really. And who knows what Chubb has left? Man, this guy's got a lot of mileage on his body to be as young as he is. But if you can get them kind of both up and running, take some pressure, maybe that's the strategy. Who knows what the heck that offensive line still is going to look like, but take some pressure off of Stroud. Yeah, could be a little extra juice there. I know the folks in Cleveland were sad to see him go, hoping that he could come back, but it just seemed like it wasn't meant to be.
Well, as I'm looking at this article on CBS Sports, you know, they drafted Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson from Ohio State / Ole Miss and Tennessee, respectively, in the first 4 rounds. So a lot of bodies in that running back room.
Absolutely. You know, and we talked about it right after the draft. Everybody was talking about the quarterback controversy and the swirling, you know, around Shador and battling out with Gabriel. I was like, hey, you drafted 2 running backs as well, and only one of them is going to get a majority of the carries. And that was when Chubb was still in the mix.
Right.
But it seems like everything is kind of shaken out. If you're in the AFC South and Chubb is healthy, yeah, Houston, despite their offensive line still being in kind of complete disarray, you maybe can, you know, don't want to go up against those guys if Chubb can get back to what we know he's capable of.
Maybe that's why they're picking up extra running backs, because that offensive line is in such flux.
That's what this reeks of to me. It's like, you know, hey, we're going to shift things back a little bit, maybe give some more play action to Stroud, maybe just, you know, roll pockets out when we need to. That's assuming that they know what they're doing. I don't know necessarily that they know what they're doing with their offensive line. But, yes, if you can't throw the ball, or if you're not getting time to throw the ball, the next best thing is to be able to just smash mouth it, and they got 2 good ones in the backfield right now.
Yeah. We also talked during the rundown about the Indiana Fever's 79-52 win over the Chicago Sky on Saturday night. I don't know how much this had to do with it, but Courtney Vandersloot tore an ACL early in that game and will miss the remainder of the season for the Sky. non-contact injury apparently, but she is out. Veteran that the Sky was really going to be counting on over the course of this season, it feels like. So that's a team that didn't necessarily need that, but tough loss on top of the loss on the scoreboard for the Sky.
Yeah, tough break for them and tough break for her, obviously. Gotten off to a slow start. I mean, just the majority of that team had. But she was, brought in and, coming off a championship, hopefully thinking be a part of the next kind of up-and-coming maybe franchise here. It has not worked out through the first couple of weeks, and now, unfortunately, will not work out for her this season.
Yeah, and again, does not help a Sky team that is 2-5 already, heading in the wrong direction early on, and a loss like that to the roster doesn't help the situation. So, good luck to the Sky digging out of that, and to Courtney Vandersloot trying to battle back from that injury. Tough situation in the Nations League final soccer matchup between Spain and Portugal. Soccer fan falls out of the stands from the second deck of the stadium there where they were playing in Munich and dies. Fell from the middle tier to the lower tier onto a staircase near the press area and unfortunately died at the scene, according to a Munich police spokesman. The Munich police have taken over the investigation. Criminal police are on site. Witnesses are being interviewed and videos reviewed. At this time, there's no evidence of anything but a tragic accident. Goodness. I can't imagine. Well, that's just tough, and no need to speculate as to what might have happened, obviously, but that's an unfortunate situation there.
Yeah, not good. And man, that is really the nightmare situation. We've seen it. We've even talked about the incident in Pittsburgh recently with the Pirates and their fall. I mean, it is. You got to be careful. And we know how rowdy the soccer fans can get, and kind of that rep that they have. An unfortunate situation that happened there in Munich, like you said.
Yeah. Let's take a break here as we continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be joined by Ben McKee of Go Vols 24/7, talking a little college baseball. Stick around.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo, opening June 20th.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Eagerly awaiting the arrival of Ben McKee, but we can get started on our college baseball talk because we've got 7 of 8 teams set for Omaha for the College World Series, 2 of which will come from the Southeastern Conference, which either disappoints or overjoys college baseball fans to no end because, again, 13 teams from the Southeastern Conference got into the initial 64-team bracket, and 2 will be going to Omaha. So, again, there are a number of folks that feel like that's a degree of comeuppance for the SEC. But I mean, you got 20%-ish of the field, and you got a quarter of the College World Series field. So, I mean, those numbers pretty well add up, right?
Yeah, and if you kind of are living and dying on conference affiliation and you're an SEC fan, this may be perhaps disappointing, but the fact remains they've won every title since 2019. So the 2 that are going to be there are going to be pretty legit, and it's not as if 1 or 2 are probably just going to bow out gracefully. I would not be shocked. Has a bracket been produced yet? Is there a dummy bracket even out yet?
I think Arkansas and LSU play each other right out of the box. I think I saw that somewhere earlier today. So that's a little disappointing. They're going to be on the same side of the bracket, sounds like. I bet somebody that can tell us more about that, though, just joined us. Ben McKee from Go Vols 24/7 coming in hot. Ben, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are y'all?
We're doing well, man. So what do you know about the CWS bracket to this point?
I know that Arkansas and LSU plays each other.
Okay.
And that's about it. And then I can probably piece together the rest of the field. I know Coastal's in there. That's a fun story. Coastal Carolina. You got UCLA. I don't know who else is in there. I've been so focused on Tennessee.
Arizona is in there, and I feel like that's kind of the story to this point. I know it's only one game, but Arizona opened at North Carolina with an 18-2 loss. And, oftentimes the question is, how do you come back from that? Well, in the Wildcats case, it was you come back with 2 wins on the road, you punch your ticket to Omaha. But that's kind of wild to me. And it's got to be disappointing for Carolina.
Yeah, very, very wild, and just speaks to how crazy the sport of baseball is. It's you think you know something and you don't. What you think is going to happen usually does not play out in that manner. That's why it's the sport. Just off the top of my head, I think that you can't 1,000% predict on paper. Kind of going into a football game, I mean, you have a pretty good idea of who is going to win, and most of the time it plays out that way, especially at the NFL level. Basketball, there's a little more flukiness in the air, if you want to call it that. And I just think baseball is the ultimate game of not really knowing what's going to happen, just because it's a game of failure. It's a really, really difficult game to play. The best hitters in the world can look like the worst hitters of the world the very next day. Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs last night, and when they play tomorrow in Kansas City, I mean, he could go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. And it's not that he's all of a sudden a bad player or he hit 2 home runs on Saturday night because it was a fluke. It's just the nature of sports and the game of baseball. And I think hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports, hitting a baseball, hitting a softball. And it can make you look real silly. And I think you've seen that across college baseball during this NCAA tournament. Obviously, you dive into it a little more in depth and you realize that there's no great one team in the sport this year. I think Arkansas is going to win it all. I think they're the most complete team. That would be my prediction if somebody asked me to give one. Would not be surprised if LSU wins. I kind of think that I would pick Arkansas if I had to pick one, but I think the winner of LSU Arkansas, that game, whenever they play this upcoming Thursday, Friday, whenever it is, I think the winner of that probably wins the national championship. I think Arkansas is the most well-rounded, most complete team, but they're not dominant by any stretch of the imagination. They're not 22 Tennessee or last year's Tennessee in the postseason. So I think the fact that there's been a lot of evenly matched teams. Everybody talks about the transfer portal and NIL killing college athletics. I think it's been great for college baseball, at least, because there's been great parity this year, I think, and I think it's because the talent is so far spread out, and you've had some pretty wild results. Not as many this weekend as there were last weekend, but last weekend with Vanderbilt and Ole Miss and who else am I forgetting? There's others out there. So just I think it's been a great tournament, and I think part of it is baseball's a game of failure. I think the portal and NIL has distributed so many players to so many different parts of the country, and I think that this particular season there's just not that one team that is bona fide better than the rest. There's been a lot of different teams that have taken their turn at looking like the best team in the country. Tennessee, the first half of the year, LSU was ranked number one, Arkansas was ranked number one, Vanderbilt, and I'm sure there was another one or two. So a lot of different components, I think, kind of mixing into the pot this year.
You mentioned Arkansas, and that's a team, Ben, that I've kind of just kept my eyes on, and for good reason. Obviously, like you said, they were ranked number one for various stretches. But given what we saw this weekend, you kind of insinuated a little bit. It seems like they're playing maybe back to national championship caliber baseball at the moment in your mind?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt. I think this is the most well-rounded. I know I said that I think they're the most well-rounded team in the country right now. I think it's the most well-rounded team that Arkansas has had in the last several years, because they haven't been to Omaha since 22. And like 1 year it's kind of been, okay, they don't have enough pitching depth. One big topic of conversation has been the offense and just how often it sputters. And they've really nailed down both sides of the baseball, on the mound, at the plate. The lineup is just so deep and so treacherous and so difficult to navigate. You know, the Aloy brothers get a lot of conversation, and rightfully so. But Charles Davalon, I think, might be the most underrated player in the SEC. Him and Andrew Fisher are the two most underrated players in the SEC. Cam Kozel, I'm sure Vanderbilt would like to have him back as well. I mean, just top to bottom, 1 through 9, they're just a pain in the butt to deal with, and that hasn't been the case the last couple of years. So kind of everybody's, well, why didn't they let Liam Doyle pitch more? Well, he's tired and about to face Davalon again, who took him deep the first time around. Just as Tony put it, almost destroyed the Arkansas hitting facility out in right field by what he did to Doyle the first time he was up, second time he was up. And then, like, why not stick with Braden Krenzel, or why bring a freshman in there? Like, those are fair questions. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's fair thoughts to have in regards to some of the decisions that were made on Tennessee's part. But like I told somebody a little while ago, I mean, yeah, they're fair questions, but I think you just got to tip your hat to Arkansas. Better team, more complete team, defensively, pitching, offense. It was in their own stadium. They're the better team. I think you just kind of got to tip your hat to them.
Ben McKee of GoVols 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Ben, you mentioned you've got LSU and Arkansas playing each other immediately. You've also got, again, Coastal Carolina is back in Omaha, Oregon State, UCLA, and Louisville have gotten through. The only berth still up for grabs will be decided tonight over in Durham as Duke takes on Murray State. The scrappy racers out of the Missouri Valley Conference who got out of Oxford. You've got a couple of teams that weren't national seeds, as Duke took down Georgia in Athens in the opening weekend, while again Murray gets by Ole Miss. Should be a barn burner tonight, feels like.
It should be, and that was the other one. The team from regional weekend that I forgot to mention, Georgia, that kind of choked and fell on its face. That was a team that one surprised me as much as any result last weekend. Vanderbilt certainly took the cake falling flat on their face. Although I do think that they had some bad luck in the sense of not how they played, but in terms of the draw that they received in Wright State, ETSU, Louisville. That's a really tough regional. That quite frankly, that's a tougher regional than the one Tennessee got, and Tennessee was the 14 national seed. So
right,
and that's nothing against Tennessee's regional. Like Wake Forest, I think was also very, very underrated as well, especially the offensive side. And Tennessee needed to get some things going there. But can y'all still hear me? I see that there I go.
Yes, we got you.
Y'all can
You're
still
good.
at least hear me while I was frozen. Shout out to the hotel Wi-Fi. I'm still stranded.
Yes, sir.
In Fayetteville. The airlines will not let me rebook my ticket to get back today. So I'm living on hotel Wi-Fi over here. But Georgia, I was as confident in Georgia because of that lineup, just about as confident I was in Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt was playing really good baseball coming out of the SEC tournament, and that one really surprised me. But it'll be a barn burner over there in Durham. I would think that Duke has more pitching, but that's certainly the theme with Murray State is like, can they hit enough to overcome the lack of pitching that they have? I mean, you saw it in that final game in Oxford to where they were up big, and then they kind of ran out of pitching, and they were holding on for dear life, just praying like, all right,
begging.
We're out of pitching. Throw it over the middle of the plate and hope they hit it right at somebody. That was kind of what their game plan was the last, 4, 5, 6 innings, whatever it was, and kind of felt like that last night. I didn't get to watch a great deal because Tennessee was playing, but seemed like they were just holding on for dear life yesterday as well, or just with the pitching staff, just not enough. So for Murray State, my grandparents live about 20 minutes from Murray in Paris, Tennessee. So I've always kind of liked Murray State for that reason, even if they are across the border. But that'd be a cool story, an awesome story. The first super regional ever, I believe, and would obviously be their first ever trip to Omaha. So that'd be a great story. And hopefully we get a good baseball game tonight with it being the only one left.
Exactly. Yeah. 3 teams, Arizona, Louisville, and either Duke or Murray State, unseeded coming into the field of 64 to go back to the kind of parity that you were talking about in this year's baseball season in particularly feels like.
Yeah, it's been wild. Louisville, I mean, you look at Louisville and it's funny when you look at Tennessee, and some opposing fans are throwing this in the face of Tennessee and its transfers that Gavin Keelan, Andrew Fisher, and Liam Doyle, all of the schools that they first attended in college are all in Omaha. Liam Doyle started at Coastal Carolina. Andrew Fisher started at Duke. I guess that one's technically not done, but could be all 3 end up in Omaha, and then Gavin Keelan transfers from Louisville, and now Louisville's going back to Omaha. It's just I think it's a testament to how many, in addition to the things that I've already said, is that there's so many great college baseball coaches, and you look at Louisville and kind of they were down for a couple of years and they were able to get it back going. You look at Vanderbilt, they had kind of been down by their standards the last couple of years, and I know they bowed out in the first round, but this was a better version of Vanderbilt throughout the regular season than we had seen the last couple of years. Miami kind of been teetering. They've had some strong teams, but not really able to get back to Omaha. But and they come up short in Louisville. And Louisville kind of fits that same billing of Louisville. There seemed like a constant super regional team, constant Omaha team, and had not been the case the last couple of years. And they're very well rounded this year. And being able to get back. And I think it's a lot of coaches not being afraid to look at themselves in the mirror and realize, okay, I need to change this. I need to change that. I think you've seen that with Dave Van Horn. He's obviously had a phenomenal track record at Arkansas over the years. And the last couple have not been up to those standards because he set such a ridiculously high standard, kind of like with Tony this year. I mean, they almost won 50 games and get back to a super regional, and no shame in losing in Arkansas in a super regional 2 games away from Omaha. But some fans are frustrated by how frustrating the season was at times. And a lot of that is because of the ridiculous bar that Tony has now set. And part of that was with Dave Van Horn. And the last couple of years have been frustrating for him as well. Very much like Tim Corbin, just the fans kind of getting on to him about the offense, the lack of offense. And he was able to look in the mirror and make some adjustments and figure some things out. I kind of, when talking about it now, Tim Corbin, Dave Van Horn, how they've made some adjustments to the way they construct their roster kind of reminds me of Rick Barnes and his Tennessee basketball offense.
It's interesting that you go there to looking in the mirror and reconstructing, because the Tennessee baseball team wasn't the only team that came up a little short this spring. What is the vibe around Tennessee softball after back-to-back Final Fours and nothing to show for it other than Final Fours?
Yeah, it's a tough conversation because on one hand, and it's kind of the same thing with baseball, you're pleased with how far you made it, but you also realize what the standard is and that it wasn't quite good enough, and there were some frustrations along the way. Now, the baseball team was more frustrating from a week-to-week perspective this year than the softball team was. But I, at least for me, maybe I'm on an island, but I do feel like there's a sense of frustration that there just hasn't been enough offense to pair with the elite pitching that Carlin Pickens has provided. So I think that needs to be at the top of the bucket list, or the top of the to-do list this offseason. And I did see where they picked up a couple of transfers last week who seem like will be really nice offensive additions. But to me, that's what this offseason is all about. You know, you've got one more year of Carlin Pickens, and you should be doing anything and everything in your power to be the bona fide winner in the portal. And you don't need pitching, obviously. You need offense, and you should be loading up on offense because she is more than capable of leading you to a national championship. I mean, there's no bones about that. I mean, she's as great as Monica Abbott was. And anytime you're putting a pitcher in the same conversation as Monica Abbott, that kind of speaks for itself. So I think there's an appreciation for how far they did get this year, because even making it to the Final Four and then still coming up short, that's frustrating. That's disappointing. That's not the expectation. That's still something to be proud of. But I do think that as much appreciation and as much as they are proud, I would think from the outside looking in that there's equal disappointment, because the offense continued to kind of stub its toe. But on top of that, you really kind of beat yourself while you were in OKC with the Oklahoma walk-off win to begin the tournament. I mean, if I don't want to, I mean,
yeah, who knows what happens then, right?
Right. And like, I don't want to get on Pickens too much, because are they in that position without Pickens? But ultimately she did give up the home run. And there is obviously the debate of whether or not to walk the young lady that hit the walk-off home run. So that's more on Karen Weekly than it is Carlin Pickens, if you want to second guess things. So what goes differently? You kind of beat yourself in that game, and UCLA, you end up winning, but another scenario in which you were up and Carlin was trying to close it out, and you almost got walked off again. Now there's a whole debacle about touching home plate in that one. That's a different conversation. But and then the Texas, kind of going back to the theme about the offense I was talking about, just couldn't get out of their own way, just could not generate enough offense to get you over the hump. So I think if you're a Tennessee softball fan, you're hoping and praying that they can go out and find a lot of offensive pieces, because if you pair a dangerous offense with Carlin Pickens, you're probably winning the national championship.
Yeah, and you mentioned, and I mean, how much offense are we talking? Do they need just a little smidge to get them over the hump? Because, man, they were right there. Took, 2 out of 3 from Texas in the regular season. I mean, the pieces seemingly were all there. So I'm curious, how much do they really need? You never really know until everybody comes together next year. But, man, they were right there. So I'm with you. I'm not even a Vols fan, and I feel sad for them. But also, it's like, man, you were right there, and you maybe should have got some of those wins you didn't get.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer to that is, because I think you could argue, like with a generational talent like Carlin, that maybe it is just a smidge. But I think my natural thought or the first thought that pops into my brain is that you need a little bit more than just a smidge, because you were so dependent on Carlin and defense, which is fine. That just puts a lot of pressure on Carlin to be perfect when the expectations are already on her to be perfect, because she is so talented. So I would, again, I'd be gung-ho on trying to find as much offensive talent as I can. I obviously don't follow softball as much as I do baseball on a daily basis, and it seemed like they have some nice young players over there that they can build around moving forward. One from your neck of the woods, as I know. But I'd like to see a little more thump in the lineup and some more bat to ball skills. That's something I think the baseball team needs. I love all the power, and that's kind of the new age of baseball. I think they could benefit from some more athleticism, at least a guy or two that can be a game changer. And I kind of have the same feeling about softball. So I don't think it's a smidge, because it was a constant issue. And I think if you take Carlin Pickens away, then the offensive issues are more glaring than they actually were. So I don't think it's a smidge. I think they need more than that. Maybe not a wholesale change or like drastic changes are needed, but I think it's just they need more talent offensively. And I think it's more than just one or two bats. Like if I don't know the number situation, but if you could get 3 to 5 game-changing big-time bats in there, I think it would make a world of difference.
Or I'm thinking, just bring a bunch in and, survival of the fittest, see who can win the job. I mean, the best player wins the job. An embarrassment of riches certainly wouldn't hurt if they could lure some extra depth to Knoxville.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting part of this offseason, particularly with baseball. I'm not sure what the softball numbers are going to be, but with the House settlement going in Friday night, and baseball is going to have 34, the roster limit of 34 for the spring. Now, you can bring as many players as you want in the fall and kind of let them battle it out, kind of like a tryout. But I also kind of think that is a bit of bad business to bring in 50 for the fall, and then you're running 16 out the door by the time the spring rolls around. I think you have to have the roster set in December. So, yeah, competition brings out the best. Tennessee football is banking on that with their quarterback situation the next couple of weeks. But you can never go wrong with too much talent. And that's kind of – people ask me, well, what does Tennessee baseball need in the portal? And there's a couple of obvious areas, but for the most part, the baseball staff has the mindset of, like, let's just accumulate as many talented bats as we can get, and we'll figure it out when they get on campus. Tyler Myatt, the JUCO prospect that committed last week from Walter State, kind of played second base this year, probably going to play corner outfield with Tennessee after he played second with Walters. And it's like he put up ridiculous offensive numbers. So let's get the bat and kind of figure out the defense next. And I don't think the softball team would hurt too much from trying to do the same thing of just accumulating, to your point, as many bats as possible, letting them compete and figuring out the defensive positioning from there.
When you take that approach, though, Ben, there is a danger, and I'm going to point to Dean Curley as Exhibit A of that danger. Most of these guys are going to have to play defense somewhere, and I'm not sure for Curley at this point that needs to necessarily be the case. I mean, how do you address that? It's like, yeah, you got to get him on the field somewhere. What happens with him next year? Is he an outfielder?
He's in professional baseball, is where he is.
Okay, my bad. So he gets drafted this time?
Yes, he's a 2-year college guy.
Okay.
He'll be one of the older guys, but still, I mean, he's going to have to play defense at the next level. If I don't know, maybe I look silly for this in the future. I think this year was more of a one-off for Dean. I mean, I don't think he's going to win any gold gloves at the next level, but I think he's obviously better than what he showed defensively this year. I think it was all mental. It was the yips. I think he's a third baseman or maybe a corner outfielder. That's my guess, but I don't know. We'll see. I think the arm strength, and he doesn't lack lateral quickness, but he doesn't have the lateral quickness that you typically see from a middle infielder, especially at shortstop. So I think that arm strength is better suited for third base, but he's certainly going to have to figure the throws out because you can't continue. You can have all the arm strength that you want. We talk about it with Joe Milton all the time. You can have all the arm strength you want, but if you're not getting the baseball where it needs to go, then who cares about your arm strength? So he is a draft eligible sophomore, and he's probably going to be a top 50, top 75 pick. He's going to make a lot of money next month.
Position hitter.
Yes.
There we go. Ben McKee of Go Vols 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. He alluded a little bit to the Vols gridiron situation. We're not going to get into it because we don't have time for it, but probably the next time we visit with Ben, that will be what we're talking about. They call that a tease. Ben, appreciate you taking some time with us, man. Good luck getting back to God's country, as somebody called it, and we'll catch up with you.
Absolutely. Always appreciate y'all having me on, and looking forward to my 6 a.m. flight as much as I'm looking forward to joining y'all the next time. Y'all have a great week.
See you, brother.
Thanks. I'm not quite sure how to take that one, but let's take a break here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, it'll be the final segment of the show. We'll get you caught up on everything from the weekend. Stick around.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
It is the final segment of the weekend wrap-up here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Wade is our tennis expert. So, Wade, why is Roland Garros hyphenated?
Now that I could not tell you. I don't know that necessarily has anything to do with tennis, but
it's named for a person. Here's the deal. I was, doing some show prep and getting some information regarding the finals over there, and I went to a website and it showed Roland Garros, which is the name of the facility where they play the French Open, hyphenated. But the facility, the stadium is named for Roland Garros. So, grammatically speaking, I don't know why there's a hyphen there, but when you go to the website, it's hyphenated. Threw me off.
I don't know. Yeah, you better submit some requests. See if Turner needs to do some rebranding efforts. It sounds like.
Yeah. Couple of comeback victories in the men's and in the women's and the men's singles finals. Coco Gauff got down a set, came back and beat Sabalenka in 3. Alcaraz gets down 2 sets, comes back and beats Sinner in 5. Pretty impressive matches to close out the single slate on Saturday and Sunday.
No doubt. Saturday was epic, especially here in the U.S. of A. We mentioned at the top of the show, first win by an American female in 10 years at the French Open. Coco, man, it will send chills down your spine when you see the video of her as a youngster in the crowd watching Serena and kind of just looking longingly. And we saw a similar situation with Alcaraz on Sunday where there's the major comparisons with him and Nadal. But Saturday, epic. so well deserved. Second major championship or second Grand Slam, if you will, for Coco. She kind of ascends even further. You know, we saw her burst onto the scene at the U.S. Open years ago and has just really improved every step of the way, taking down Sabalenka, battling back to do so. Cannot be more proud of her, and it was an impressive effort. And then Sunday, all we did was get treated to one of the greatest matches in the history of the sport. You mentioned Alcaraz with the comeback for the ages. Down 2 sets, looks done, looks dusted, and somehow rallies. A match that lasts 5+ hours. I started watching this match 3 different times. I had time to get up, have coffee, watch it when it started at 8. I had time to do some yard work around 10 when they were still kind of going, and it looked like Alcaraz was on the ropes. And then I caught the last set, and then ultimately winning in the 10-2 tiebreak. Insane comeback. Sinner he didn't win a game. I forget the exact stat. He didn't win a game for like a final hour and 40 minutes or something ridiculous. It was just unreal theater. One of the greatest matches I've ever seen, certainly. And there's already immediately, I know recency bias, but I mean, this has got to be one of the all-timers considering the stakes for a player like Coco, a young up-and-coming player who's trying to burst as one of the all-time greats already.
John McEnroe talking about this match on Sunday said it sounded semi-crazy to say that either Alcaraz or Sinner would beat the big 3 at their peak, but he's saying Sinner and Alcaraz against Nadal on clay, you'd make a serious argument with both that they would be favored to beat Nadal at his best. So that's some pretty high company that one of the greats is putting both those guys in coming off of their performance on Sunday.
Yeah, some lofty praise. I mean, and Alcaraz, you know, at just 22, like I mentioned, the video with Coco and Williams there, we saw similar stuff. There's Carlos, young Carlos, in his backyard, and he says, I want to win Wimbledon. I want to win the French Open. I don't know that he anticipated doing it in such dramatic fashion, already winning both tournaments twice by the time he's 22 years old. I don't know. Give me still Nadal on clay at his prime at this current juncture. But give me Alcaraz maybe in a year or two. I mean, we're talking about a guy that is still going to continue to develop. That was an epic showdown Sunday.
Dropping back to Saturday for just a second, because there was a lot of conjecture about Sabalenka's post-match comments. Not exactly the most gracious in the loss, pinning it more on what she did than what Coco did. Any thoughts one way or the other regarding her reaction to that loss?
I mean, my only immediate thought was, man, it is tough that they immediately, the second you lose a match, you have to address the entire crowd and obviously the television audience right there. You know, so there ain't no telling what is going through your mind when 30 seconds after your title slips through your fingertips, you're thrust into that role. I find that always odd that they do that at the major tournaments. So no real opinion one way or the other. I mean,
yeah.
She's just saying whatever she can say or whatever she can muster together. Her emotional state was probably out of this world after dropping one right there. But yeah, man, it's just an odd practice that they do that.
That makes sense.
I mean, it's like doing a press conference, you know, after Chris Webber, you know, calls the timeout. He has to walk back to, you know, in the clips are wild. He walks back to the locker room. He gets to go to the locker room. He gets to cool down, then get in front of the microphones. 2 minutes after Sabalenka or these finalists lose, they have to not only address the crowd, which was epic, by the way. Elite people watching yesterday. We saw Spike. We saw Robert Kraft. We saw Dirk and Tony Parker. I mean, it was a who's who out cheering them on over the weekend. But you have to address all those people and knowing that everybody's watching on TV.
It's a good point. That's a great point.
All I'm saying is I don't know what the hell I would say. And I'm
that. I got you. Yeah, and that makes sense. Sovereignty didn't have to talk after the Belmont Stakes. Don't know what he would have said, but did win the 2 legs of the Triple Crown and skipping the middle one there, but it was Sovereignty, Journalism, and Baeza at the Belmont Stakes over the weekend to close out basically the featured horse racing season. So got a two-time winner.
Chalk. Yeah, I mean, I forget the exact number, but if you played those on a trifecta, I mean, you might have made a little money. But it was as chalky as it get. But we talked about it Friday, right? I mean, it was a limited field with not a lot of long shots, not a real contenders other than those three. And so, we'll always wonder, to your point from Friday, we'll always wonder kind of what if in this situation.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it gives you something to think about for sure. So, the NBA Finals are square at 1 apiece following Oklahoma City's 123-107 win yesterday over the Pacers. That series will resume Wednesday in Indianapolis.
Very odd game. Game one, obviously, we'll remember as an epic collapse by the Thunder. Game two, the Thunder kind of took care of business, but it seemed like Indiana said, hey, we got our win and we're going back to Indy. It was an unusual game, and you kept waiting, right? You almost felt that they would make a run, and they have put such fear in everybody's hearts now. When you make a bucket to cut it to 18, you don't usually really start trembling, but OKC kind of, they looked a little disinterested too. It's a very unusual game last night, but a good win, obviously, for OKC, who seems back on track.
Yeah. Away from the finals, former Brentwood Academy and one-time Vanderbilt standout Darius Garland underwent surgery on his left big toe earlier today at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. According to the reports in the Akron Beacon Journal, underwent successful surgery to repair a sprained big toe. Now, I don't know exactly how that works, but I'm not a finely tuned professional athlete either. So at any rate, it's going to be about 4 or 5 months before he is back, which could potentially put him in danger of missing out the early portion of the NBA schedule for the Cavaliers. Missed 4 playoff games with the injury, 2 against the Heat and 2 against the Pacers in the Eastern Conference semifinals. So part of the spate of injuries that Cleveland went through in a disappointing postseason.
Yeah, hopefully he's in peak form by this time next year. Zach Edey for the Grizzlies also have an ankle surgery. He's probably going to miss at least a couple games to start the year. Surgery hopefully went well for those guys, but I'm thinking for rehab, why not just come on down to Columbia and get in at TOA and get really fixed up? Maybe they could get back by the start of the season at that point.
There you go. Stanley Cup final. Edmonton and Florida are also even at 1 game apiece. That followed up that overtime matchup in game 1 with a 2 overtime game Friday. Florida getting out with a 5-4 victory. Again, it goes to Sunrise tonight. 7 o'clock start for game 3. You can see it on TNT.
It's going to be a fun one. I think it'll be a little more low scoring. Feels like the forechecking there was like 6 goals scored in the first period the other night, and then they really took a turn. I feel like we're going to see a more defensive game tonight, but I like Florida to win this game.
Calvin White and I will let you know how it comes out, because Wade is going to be on a boat somewhere for about the next 10 days or so, and I can't be too jealous for obvious reasons, but we're going to have to suffer through without Wade until a week from Friday, June 20th. We'll be counting it down. Wade, enjoy your time off, man. We appreciate your hard work and look forward to having you back rested and refreshed. Again, join Calvin White and me tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We'll see y'all.